Hey, my name's Jonathan, and I'm a veteran.
Hi, my name is Daryl, and I'm a veteran.
My name is Chad, and I'm a veteran.
Hey, I'm Travis. I'm an Air Force veteran.
Hi, my name's Ashley, and I'm a veteran.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with a Vet. I am your host, Carol Lee. I have a wonderful, wonderful guest waiting in the wings tonight. And I just wanted to first wish every father out there a happy Father's Day. And thank you for being a father. That's always really important to make sure that we honor those who are fathers. Mothers get a lot of praise and recognition, and fathers should as well. So we want to make sure to say thank you and happy Father's Day. Also, yesterday was the 250th anniversary of the Army's birthday. So it was 250th birthday for the Army. So happy belated birthday. And I kind of watched a little bit of the replay of the parades. That was really interesting to see, the differences from each generation pretty much. So, all right. Well, without further ado, I would like to welcome my guest, Dr. Arielle Jordan. Hello, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful. I want to start by saying thank you very much for your service and sacrifice, as well as taking the time to come on and join me tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, Ron, welcome. Thank you. Jason, thank you for popping in. So, I usually will start my shows by asking a little bit about who, in this case, Arielle Jordan was as a child.
So thinking about who I was as a child, I remember being ambitious. Um, I always wanted to, I guess, get further, if that makes any sense. So I was thinking about that question and just thinking about how, like, what did I do when I was younger? And I know that I skipped kindergarten when I was very little. I wanted to go straight to first grade. And that was a question that was asked, like, since you know these certain skills, do you want to do that? And I did. So that was like an early start. So I was always the younger person in all of the grades, and I actually graduated when I was 16. So
wow, very ambitious.
Yeah. I put together, I remember like being in like 9th, 10th grade thinking, well, if I'm going to be a senior and only have like one class, why shouldn't I just graduate early instead of doing that? And my first job I had was at 14. And so I guess I always started things early, just to get to whatever was the next thing,
That's wonderful. So you liked school? Did you enjoy school? Were you studious?
I I think I enjoyed school, but I remember dealing with a lot of racism growing up. And so that was part of the motivation, like I gotta get out of here, but in a proper way. So I remember those type of struggles coming up, being the minority in the classroom and stuff like that. And it just wasn't a great experience, but not overall. Just like I can remember some pivotal moments that I'm like, yep, I'm going to do it this way. And that's what I decided to go ahead and just get my work done and just keep my head down and do it that way.
Which is, generally a really good course of action when, you just kind of focus on your goals and work on them every day to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
It's a lot of the same things too for people who might have traumas growing up or things like that, right? They kind of have to, they don't necessarily have an option and they just have to live day to day and live through it and just get through it day to day until they can get the then whatever they need to get out and into a different situation, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, it's kind of like the survival mode, but you don't necessarily recognize it as that. But like reflecting back, it absolutely was pretty much survival, but also ambition as well. But there's certain things that are behind the why we do the things that we do.
right. Right. So were you in any kind of sports in school or anything physical?
Yeah, I ran track when I was in high school. I I also was on the flag team, which is kind of
Nice.
funny. 'Cause I don't even know where that came from, but somehow me and my best friends got on the flag team, and we actually changed some stuff around when we got there because the uniforms we felt like we looked like Urkel, so we were like, we were like, absolutely not. So we put together like fundraisers, even like in school, we put together fundraisers and stuff to get us like the gaucho pants that were flowy and cute. And I remember us doing a parade together for the apple blossom. That's the big thing in Winchester, Virginia, is the apple blossom parade. So I remember us coming in and saying, nope, we're not wearing this.
Jason says, thank you for your service, Doc.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason.
So, okay. So you were already physically fit, right? So, what was it that made you take that step into the military world? So, what was it that made you decide to join the military for starters?
It's so crazy. Like I think back at it now and I'm like, really? I really did that. Um, so when I was, let's see, my high school year, we were told that you could go take the ASVAB test. And I was like, well, how long does that take? Didn't even know what it was like, how long does that take? Okay, so I'll miss this period. So it was no like strategy behind it. It was like, oh, I'll miss class for this many hours. Okay, yeah, I'll go take a test, no problem. And I ended up scoring well on the test. So I knew I always had that like in my back pocket and went on about life and graduated. And I was working at McDonald's at the time. And I was like, there has to be more to life than being a crew trainer here. And being the town that I lived in was very small. So I just wanted to do something more. And I didn't feel like the town had a lot more to offer me at that time. So I went to the recruiting office and I remember thinking that there was this really cute recruiter at high school. And I was just like, oh, I'm gonna go find him. And so
Mhm.
that is ridiculous, but that is how I thought as a teenager, right? And so I went to the recruiting office, of course, didn't find him, but I was like, how long is it going to take if I want to leave like now? And they said, well, let's pull up your scores and can you pass the PT test? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. So I had to get my parents to sign because at that time I was only 17.
I
And
was wondering how old you were at that point.
yes, my dad
And
said no.
what did your mom say?
I can't remember what her response was. I might have to ask her and see if she remembers. But I do remember my dad said a firm no because he was a Vietnam veteran and he was in the Navy. I have a brother that was in the Navy. I have two brothers that were in the Navy, and I can't remember who in my family joined the Army. So, but no women. And he told me the Army is no place for a woman. And I took it as a challenge
Challenge accepted.
rather than lead it. Like, and it was so funny because when I did go, he did end up signing because again, there was just no opportunities and life wasn't great at that time. So he was like, this, okay, maybe this is good for you. But I called him on like day 3 because they told us we wouldn't get any like frequent phone calls in basic training. And I had an infantry drill sergeant, another one that was military police. And they were like, we don't do what everybody else does. So you're not going to get, as many phone calls as you look around and see everyone else getting. So I remember calling him crying, like, what did I do? And he was like, you know what? You're going to have to get through it now. He was like, I tried to tell you. And it was always like that. Like, I tried to tell you, but you had to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. They're pretty smart. Those fathers, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, okay. So let's go back just a little bit. So you
Mhm.
get to basic training. How long did it take you once you signed on the dotted line?
It took 10 weeks, and it was a time period where I thought I was going to have to start over, because if you are like sick or something and you miss too many days, they restart you. So you could be there from 10 weeks to whatever time it takes. So if you're in week 2 when you get restarted, then now you're there for 11 weeks, and they don't tell you about week 0. So when I got there, you read the pamphlets and stuff, it's 9 weeks, but there's also a week 0. So there's actually 10 weeks. And well, at least when I joined in 2008. And for me, I got sick, I think maybe like the first or second week. I got very sick with bronchitis.
Oh,
And my fear was like, they're going to restart me. And so I was like, nope, I'm not sick. Bronchitis, you can't help but to cough a lot.
yes.
And I was like, no, it's fine. I'm good. And I had like cough drops and everything. And I was not fine. And then when we went on I forget how many miles the run was, but I was dying. Like, it hurt so bad. And I finally ended up in the hospital, and it took me like 2 days to get out, but I kept begging them, please don't keep me more than 3 days. I will get better. And I just remember being so scared I was gonna have to start my weeks over, but luckily I didn't, or even start with a different company, or I just didn't want to start over. So that was the struggle with the basic training.
So when you first got to basic training, what was going through your head? Like when you first, I'm assuming you got there by bus?
Yes. Well, we took a van. It was a smaller.
Okay.
I left from Fort Meade here in Maryland, and we drove to South Carolina, Fort Jackson. So it was a long drive. I can't remember that part. I do remember when we got there, we were immediately yelled at, and we had to put our duffel bags, those big green duffel bags, over top of our head. And they are heavy. So
Yeah.
I remember having to do that. And then they got so frustrated. Go ahead and drop it in front of you. And y'all dropped too. So now we're in push-up position. And I'm just like, whoa, we just got here. Like, this is what's happening. And no, right when you get there, that is what happens. And then you are issued what we called marshmallows. So they were just gray sweatpants, gray shirt, army. And so basically nobody has an identity anymore. You're now here to serve. You are Army. That's who you are. And you are private so-and-so. So that's what I can remember when
You at least got to be called private so-and-so?
Yeah. I think
the Marine Corps calls you recruit. And you have to answer this recruit. Like, you can't even say, they don't say your name, nothing.
Yeah, you're called whatever they choose to call you.
Yeah. I was just thinking how different that was between, because I have 2 Marine veteran sons. And so, yeah, just hearing the difference, right? And having to hear them talk about themselves in the third person, right?
Yeah.
Recruit.
I mean, once you get your uniform, it's now on your chest. So
yeah.
You're addressed properly. Most of the time you're dressed properly, but right
unless you make them mad.
Yeah. So there's a little dehumanization there.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense, right? They got to break you down, get rid of all the habits that you had that you're used to, and mold you into something that they want you to be. And I get that, right? I mean, as a parent, we kind of do the same thing. Just a little differently, because we had them since infancy and we raise them up the way we want them, to face the world. So it's kind of the same, although we don't necessarily, scream and yell and holler in their face.
Nurture as a parent, I can imagine,
Right. Yes. So, okay, you end up, you get there, and the fact that they were yelling and screaming at you right off the get-go, was that any
Um,
kind of an effect that had on you?
yeah, definitely. I was like, whoa, they're serious. Like this is not a joke. There was a moment of realization, like this is real. Like you really sign a contract and they have your parents sign. So it's not like you can go home. Like, no, you're the armies now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that, yeah, definitely was a realization of, okay, you really are here. This is it right now.
And that first week is your receiving week, and where you get all your equipment and everything in your bed or your rack, and shown kind of where everything is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And you get all your shots. And I remember that being a moment too where I felt more like an animal than a person because they're just like, whatever your shot record doesn't have, I guess they look at that and then they see like what immunizations you need. And so for me, I needed 6. So I remember just standing in line, they're like, next. And they just stick it in your arm and then next. And then, so I got like 3 in each arm and I got to the end of the line. I was done with my immunizations. And then we still had to do push ups because that's what they felt like telling us to do. And after you get, that many, your arms are weak. So I just remember being yelled at because I couldn't do the push-ups at that moment. So now I'm yelled at for not doing them. So I just felt like, dang, can I do anything right?
And you're so used to achieving your goals up to this point, right? And they set that bar so high
Mhm.
intentionally, but you don't recognize that right off the get-go, right?
No, no, it's like it's almost like you're being picked on, but at the same time, as you continue to learn and grow, they do expect excellence from you, and so that is the standard. The standard is excellence.
Yes. So, okay, do you have any funny stories from basic training that you can think of?
Oh my goodness.
I love hearing these stories, and I think they're so fun to listen to.
I mean, I can think of a few, but I remember we had what they call smoke sessions where you are getting smoked, so you're exercising to the point where steam is coming off of your body. And so one of them, they had us like our bay was 50 bunk beds. It was like 25 on each side and they had us going over the bunk bed, the bottom, and under, low crawling under. And we did that all around the room. And that was like our, I guess, punishment. And I remember the drill sergeant would sing and it was like funny, but you were angry during the time, so it wasn't funny. So he would be like, 1, 2, 3, work your body. And we would be like so mad, but it was so funny because he would add in stuff, he would ad lib and freestyle. And I'd be thinking in my head, I hate him. I hate him so much. But that's kind of like some of the like environment that you're in. Like you literally just at that point you just get through it. The ridiculousness is real.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And it's interesting because when you stop and you look back, right, and you're like, there was a reason that they had us do this. I didn't recognize it at the time, and now you look back and you're like, wait a minute. Boy, I think I understand why they had us doing that. Yeah, it was punishment, but that particular exercise of going up and over and under and, I mean, that's helping you further in the process, right? Because
Yeah,
you're
and,
going to
and
have to do that.
right. Well, and I think mentally too, like you're gonna have to do things that you don't want to do. And literally you're gonna have to do things that suck. You're gonna have to do things that are ridiculous in life. And so how do you get through it? And so I think it symbolizes like, okay, this guy is messing with us, but at the same time, he's making it kind of funny. And so like we're hating this, but occasionally it was like a funny line in there where we would be like, really? And you at the end of it you get through it. So at the end of the day you get through it, you figure it out.
Yeah. Which is really good to hear you say that, for anybody interested in joining the military, just to keep that in mind. You take it day by day. You get up, you make your bed, you know, do what you need to do, brush your teeth, all that kind of stuff. And step by step, goal by goal each day, accomplish, check. And you
Yeah,
just keep moving forward. And at some point, things will start becoming second nature. And, when they scream something off, you're right there, you're doing it and you don't even have to think about it.
absolutely. Yeah, you get to that point where it's like, what do I need to do to succeed in this mission?
Mhm. Yeah, if you think of each thing as a mission, each little thing that they give you as a mission, I think that's really good advice, actually.
Mhm,
So you make it through your basic training,
mhm.
and what happens from there?
So for me, I got transferred to Fort Lee because then you go to your job training, and that was 10 weeks as well. And that was definitely different from basic training. So there's a little bit more freedom. You get to earn weekend passes to where you are able to go do stuff. And me being 17, and I had never made that much on a paycheck before. That's when I got my first tattoo. I was like, I want to go get a tattoo with my money. And so at age 17, you don't have a lot to really think about responsibility wise, a lot of us. So that was when I was like, so I'm 17, but I have my military ID. And the person was like, you know what? If you can serve our country, you can get a tattoo. And I was like, okay, sure, let's do this, And then so I ended up doing that. I remember that being like a freedom type of thing.
So what did you say to your parents? Did you tell them right away when you got it?
I don't think I don't know. I don't remember hiding it. I don't remember asking permission or like putting it out there either. Because I don't think like my family might have taken a Christian stance on tattoos, but I'm not 100% sure. So I think I probably just went and did it and didn't think about what anybody else would say. It just made
Okay.
sure it was meaningful to me.
Right, which is a good thought, right? I mean, you don't want something when you're 70 that like
Yes, I put thought behind every tattoo that I have.
nice, very nice. So your training for that is 10 weeks. And what was your MOS? What did you sign for?
So I was a 92 golf. It's now called a culinary specialist, but before it was food service. So basically, you're cooking for the troops, and so you go to culinary school, and there's army recipes that you follow, and it needs to be like that,
Did you
and
ever
like
say I could do better?
yeah, absolutely. A lot of the times. And it depends on who your leadership is too. Sometimes your leadership is like, okay, listen, I know this is the recipe. Can you do a little something extra, or whatever within the parameters of dietary restrictions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for me, following the recipe didn't necessarily make the food good. So a lot of times they didn't know like why it was good.
Oh, that's funny. So you had 10 weeks of what was the actual training? Did they like teach you to cook? Did you already know how to cook from your family?
Yeah, I have been cooking since I was 8 years old, probably, and so that's why it was like, okay, I can do this. At the recruiting office, I was like, yeah, I'll pick this job. And so when I got there, I knew how to cook, but there were certain things like baking a cake from scratch and stuff like that. Like I didn't know how to do that. I would go to the cake box and put some eggs in it and water and go from there, but so certain things like that, I remember learning that was new, and I was able to get a little bit creative, but you still have to do everything that everyone else does too. You're not just cooking, you're also pulling guard duty. I had like an extra duty of raising the flag at 5 in the morning and things like that. So you're doing that, but you're also doing other things too.
Right, right. And they rotate that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
So,
have your duties that you fulfill, and then you pass it off when it's time.
right. So you trained to be a cook. Were there any, I have to ask this question, were there any recipes from the Army that you brought home with you?
None. Absolutely none.
You never know. It's possible, right? I mean, you just never know. But that
It-
I had to ask that question because I was
yeah,
curious.
no. There's nothing that I can remember that I was like, yeah, this is good stuff. No.
But I have to say, I'm sure that those people that
Mhm.
you fed were very appreciative of you.
Yeah, and that was something that really warmed my heart when, like, I remember being in Nevada for a training, and it was Hawthorne, so it's like in the desert part, and it was hot. It was so hot, and so we have to put up this mobile kitchen trailer, and still have to do like PT in the morning, then go put up the kitchen trailer, and it stays up for the duration of the time that you're there. But it's hot cooking on that thing, and you have the generators outside and things like that. So we would make sure that we're up in the morning to prepare chow, and they would get MREs for lunch and then come back for dinner. So one thing that about being a culinary specialist is you don't sleep a lot because your sleep is broken. You have to be up at like 4 to get the chow done in the morning. You might take a nap for lunch, but then you're right back up preparing for dinner, and then you have to clean up after dinner. So there's a lot of moving parts plus PT plus whatever else you have to do. So there's a lot that goes into it. But I remember people walking through and being happy that you're smiling at them, or being happy to eat, or I'll say, hey, I put a little something special in those green beans over there, so make sure you get some, and that just that little bit can make somebody happy after a full day of duty, that my food is actually, you put a little something special in there. Okay. I'm gonna make
Right.
sure.
And it makes I'm not a green bean eater. So it might make for me, I'd have been, I got to try some of those. Because
Well, and that's a good thing. There's options, and so, but I got to know the people that were there, and it was probably about 500 for that particular training. So just talking to people and stuff, like they would give feedback whether you asked for it or not. So I kind of learned, and then I was able to do some things to help them out.
which is excellent because I would assume they don't, not a lot gets seasoned. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and for good reason,
Right.
so just like directing them, okay, here's what you do, on the table there's this and that, or whatever. But here's the Army standard is the standard, so you follow that, and then you can add stuff to it later.
Excellent. So you did that training in Hawthorne, Nevada, and then from there, were you stationed anywhere else?
Yeah, so I switched to the reserves, and then my next unit was in West Virginia in Romney, and that was the unit where I did not have a good experience. And I mean, I can't remember really having any good experiences there, and that's actually where I was at the longest too. So I'm trying to think. Well, also I went to Germany for a training as well, so they had like certain little gaps in the training where you could go somewhere, like you could sign up for volunteer for a mission or something like that. So one of the things that I did was a summer training that we went to Germany for a couple of weeks, and just things like that. I would try to get as much experience as I could away from the unit.
And what was that training for specifically? Was that
Um,
also cooking?
Yeah, yep. I got to cook in a German defect and learn from the German cooks that were on the base in Misau. And they taught us some of the ways to make the German foods that were native to the culture there. And that was cool. I also got to attend a show that was a cooking show. And I want to say it was something celebrating the army as well. But I remember there being a cake that said army on it or something. And that was really cool. Just tasting all of the food. Of course, there's the escargot where there's the snail that everybody knows that about Germany. So I had to try it. and see what that's like when they put it in garlic butter and stuff.
Did you like it?
No. I mean, so I can't say it tasted bad though. It's just knowing what it was, and it was chewy.
Yes.
So I was like, it's a texture thing for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. It's a lot like eel or squid or just
Yeah, it probably I haven't had eel or squid, but I can imagine
you're
it's
not
probably
missing out.
very similar. Yeah.
That's
So
my opinion. I throw that out there. That is strictly my opinion. So, so between the different places that you were able to go to,
mhm,
um, now was I guess my question first it would be, was Germany the first place you were outside of the country? Were
yep.
you in any others outside the
No,
country?
not
Oh,
not not in the while in the army, no.
okay.
I think I was like 19 when we went to Germany. So I learned that there's was no drinking age. And so I got to experience buying my first drink in Germany and my first legal drink in Germany, and
Yes.
so that was fun extracurricular activity.
Oh my gosh. I can only imagine. So, of the German food that you tried, excluding the escargot, was
Mhm.
there anything in particular that you really enjoyed?
The desserts, I couldn't tell you like what specific ones, but I know that they didn't use sugar like we use sugar. And so learning to make some of the things that maybe you would add like a little honey or other things, but you wouldn't use a lot of sugar. So any dessert that you pick up isn't overly sweet, um, but they still can be good. And it's just a matter of like it has natural honey in it rather than sugar.
Right. I prefer stuff that's not overly sweet.
Yeah.
And so I think I would appreciate that.
Mhm.
Now, and how long were you in Germany, did you say, for this training?
So I was in Germany for 3 weeks.
3
Yeah.
weeks.
So
Wow.
not a long time, but enough time to explore a little bit.
And so you got to mingle with the population there?
Yes. So
What
I
did you
mean,
see did you see a difference culturally? I mean, anything significant that you can recall?
well, I mean, so I spent a lot of time on base because being that young, I didn't really have a lot of money to go do stuff. So, but I did go to a nightclub there that I would imagine there's probably clubs in DC like that, but they had like different rooms of different music. So you could walk in one room and it might be rock, or you could walk in another room and it might be hip hop, and you could walk in another room and it's something else. And so that was cool to see like just the different types of music and go hanging out in different rooms. Um, on base, there it was more about working or like in the barracks playing cards with other people like me that didn't want to spend money or whatever. Um, and then like there were sports games that you could go to. There was the wild boars that you could see when you are driving somewhere. So I will say that, I did spend a lot of time on base, but that was one of the highlights, getting out and just like going to that club.
Wonderful. So, okay, after Germany, then is that where did you go after Germany?
I didn't go anywhere, but back to my unit. I did end up switching to another unit eventually, but it was like a really long process, and I experienced a lot of pain and suffering in between. And then I ended up at Fort Belvoir, which I had a good experience at Fort Belvoir. I thought Fort Belvoir was one of my favorite places.
Nice. Very nice. And so, okay, so you get to and you said yourself one of your favorite places. So, do
Mhm.
you stay in contact with anybody from any of those units? Are you still in contact with any of them?
No, I think, well, I will say one of the sergeants, she still reaches out, and then occasionally there's a major that um, he reaches out to. So occasionally, sometimes we're connected just like social media wise. For my first unit, it was not because I didn't really have any good experiences there. I actually was the only Black person at that unit, and there was one other person that was Hispanic, and so like we connected because of all the racism that we experienced at that unit, and so like that person is on my social media, and so occasionally like they don't really do social media like that, but if they do get one, they'll say, "Hey, I thought about you," just saying hello, and but it could be years in between.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like family.
Yeah, yeah. And so I actually see more about people that I was at Fort Lee with. And most of them I think are on my Facebook, and they will communicate a little bit more than anybody that I can think of.
Nice. So, when did you finally decide, okay, my time with the Army is up. I think it's time for me to separate?
Yeah, I think it was decided for me because I tore some ligaments in my shoulder. So I tore the main ligaments when I was in that Nevada stint. Um, I didn't know though; it was just painful. So I thought, you know, pain is pain. But I think I downplayed the pain a lot, and then when I got back home, I realized that it actually hurts a little bit more than I thought it would. And then I also had mobility, like too much mobility to where it would come out of socket, and that's when I
Oh,
had to, yeah, that's when I really had to like do something about it because the orthopedic doctor I saw was like, okay, yeah, we definitely need to go ahead and stabilize this because I tried physical therapy first. And so then after that got stabilized, I couldn't lift my arm. And these were the things that were happening while I was in that old unit. I wasn't guided on how to like get the care when I got back to the reserve side and off of active duty orders. So I actually had to end up writing my congressman and getting that type of assistance. And then by the time that all of that happened, I had a frozen shoulder. So
oh,
then not only did I have surgery and have to have physical therapy, but then I had a frozen shoulder as well. So it was super painful. And when I got through all of that, by the time I got through all of that kind of stuff, I had already went ahead and filled out my medical paperwork. And so it took a little while, but then I ended up medically retiring 2017.
okay. So, you were in medical at some point
I mean, like, what do you mean?
with the Army? Like, they have their medical uh, barracks, if you will?
Oh, I actually went civilian route for my medical
Okay.
because of everything I was going through at my unit. So I ended up finding actually my brother recommended an orthopedic surgeon that he had went to for back surgery. So I went to him, and he quite a good guy. He was like familiar with military folks and downplaying their pain and stuff like that. So I was in good hands, and then I trusted him to do my surgery.
Nice. And how long did it take you after the surgery to recover?
Seems like forever.
Yeah.
I think it definitely took longer than it was supposed to take because you're in a sling for 6 months, so you have to kind of keep your arm stabilized. But because I had extended time in the sling and then I had the frozen shoulder afterwards, it took way longer than it was supposed to. So I'll say over a year, and then even after that, I remember not being able to lift my arm up all the way. So it took maybe like 2 years to even be able to get my arm up over above my head.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
That's tough, especially, when you have, you've already decided, okay, I'm getting out and now I can't do anything.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
had to be difficult.
Yeah.
So,
Sleeping was difficult. Like I
yeah.
remember just getting frustrated and crying and just like starting school. I started I had multiple schools that I went to during that time period, but one of the schools that I went to, I couldn't make up my bed like by myself, and so that's super frustrating because I'm like, I need help with things that I never needed help with before.
Yeah. So once you get out, you've separated medically from the Army. What do you end up doing?
So I always was in school like throughout the years, and I think maturity kicked in at some point where I'm like, okay, we got to do this thing for real. I wanted to be a teacher, and I just I don't know what happened to that, but I no longer wanted to do that. And then I ended up getting my associate's degree in business, and then my daughter passed away. And so after that happened, I no longer wanted to do business anymore. And then my dad passed away, and I was like, yep, I don't want to do anything right now. So I took a little bit of a break because I didn't really know what to do with myself. And then I decided to learn about psychology, and I went back and got my bachelor's degree in psychology. And that led to me learning about the brain and everything that we go through and how our brains change. And then I realized with the bachelor's degree, I couldn't make the impact that I wanted to make because I could only work at like substance abuse clinics. I worked at a group home. I worked for like schools and things like that. So I did a couple of different things. And then I was like, you know what? I need a master's degree. And so I went back, got a master's, and then I just continued to get my doctorate because COVID had happened. So I was like, you know what? I'll just keep going. You know, why not? And so I just walked across the stage in January. So that was
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. So you definitely 100% earned that doctorate.
Yeah. And it was personal before it was professional. And so that's kind of my mission now. Like I really want people to know that they can heal even from the worst that life has to offer us. Sometimes we still like when our brains change for that, it can also change for the healing as well. And so we don't always see that happen. So I love being an example of that because when we think about that pain and that hurt, it's like, yeah, this is what life is, but it's like a little bit of life, right? But not all of life. So if we can get a grasp that we can change it for the better too, that's when we start to see, growth, that post-traumatic growth.
Yes. And little bits, right? You got to start somewhere in those little baby steps and with
Yeah.
help and encouragement. I really commend you for that. So
Yes, thank you.
yes, to me, I think it's amazing what you're doing. So let's go back just a little bit to when you were medically
Mhm.
separating. Did you have an opportunity through the Army to find resources on how are you going to now granted I realize you were you know uh, in the reserve so
Mhm.
but how to integrate yourself back into society back into civilian life.
There was out processing, I will say that. But I remember it just being one day, and I don't think I knew what to do after that. And I won't say that it's anybody's fault or anything like that. I will say speak for myself and say that I know I didn't know what to do. Being reserves is hard too because you get to do, whatever you want, and then when it's drill weekend or like the summer training, like you have to snap back into being a soldier. So it's the mental shift of being both. And I remember like when I was officially getting out, I'm like, wow, this is really happening. And I think I was happy about it. But then because it happened, I had a little break after I wrote a letter in 2013, December, to get out to be with my daughter. And they granted me to be inactive, but still like in the ready reserves. And then January, she passed away. So it was like 1 month after. And I remember that like put me back in because I don't know what else to do. So I actually, like after that, talked to a recruiter and got right back in and signed another contract because I didn't know what to do, but I felt like this might be the right thing to do. So my recruiter didn't do what I asked him to do, however, but I made it, because I asked him not to put me back in as a culinary specialist. I wanted to do more like HR work, something that could set me up for when I get out. but they had their own agenda and ended up putting me back in as a culinary specialist. But luckily, it was at Fort Belvoir where there was people that actually cared. So I still was a culinary specialist, but I did get to work more on like the organization of the files and the ordering of the kitchen supplies and like more than just being a culinary specialist. So that part I think helped a little bit about getting out and what do I want to do. But as for like the out processing, it was a day of checking the boxes. You have to go here, you have to go here, you have to go here.
You have to
And then
return this, and this.
yeah, return it all so that you're not charged for it. But yeah, I don't remember. I mean, and we don't expect our hand to be held anyway, we'll figure it out. But there wasn't very, very many here, do it this way, or here, maybe try this.
Right. So you've become a doctor, and have you, how far along are you in your journey with your profession?
So I mean, even I've been a therapist for almost 10 years now, and it's been just all different types of experiences that I've had. I did substance abuse for quite a few years. When I lived in Delaware, I went to court for people that had a case plan that maybe they lost their children to the system. I also helped with like kids that had behavioral issues in school or group homes and foster care programs and stuff like that. So I started off there, and then I landed at Walter Reed after substance abuse, and that's when I think I kind of found what I wanted to do. Because at Walter Reed, I was working triage, so people would come in and they would express that they wanted to commit suicide, and I had to determine, is this the want to commit suicide where I have two soldiers escort you to the ER, or is this the kind that I can sit and talk with you for a little bit, form a plan, and then get you some longer term care? And everybody's scared to talk about suicide because these are active duty people that, yes, they still have challenges, but if they say that they have challenges, are they going to get put out of the military? Is my career going to be over? So I had to be very delicate, for that type of thing. And that's when I realized all of it goes back to trauma. So why don't I just specialize in trauma? And that's where I kind of built my private practice as well, just to specialize in knowing how to treat trauma and being confident that I know how to treat it, so that people can come and work on themselves and not be afraid to talk about those silent battles that they go through.
Right. I think what you're doing is amazing. And now I've met you through a mutual friend, and that would be David Willis, and he's got Home Front Sit Rep, the Home Front Sit Rep
Yeah.
podcast, as well as Tip of the Spear. And I think there's a big connection, I think, for veterans that I think you can really connect with in the regard that, they're veterans. They have, a lot of them have PTS, and you've had your own traumas and things that are happening, and a lot of being able to relate, I think is going to be really a big key for you and your job and what you're doing. So
Absolutely.
I really commend you for that, and continuing to serve, even once you're out.
Yeah.
So when you got out, did you recognize that you were a veteran?
I don't think I did. Like, actually, nobody's ever asked me that before. I don't think I did.
Welcome to Conversations with a Vet.
Yeah, no, I just hit me that I don't think I ever thought that at first. And actually, it wasn't until more recently that I think I started to lean into it a little bit more, because it's like most of us, we don't join for the glory or the combat, or like, we just join because we want a better life, or, there's a lot of reasons behind why we join, right? But we end up serving our country. We end up carrying those values, like the Army values are drilled into you. And it just becomes this way of living. So when you get out, you do like lose that way of living, but not 100% because you lose that structure, but the values are still there. And so like for me, I don't think I really captured that part of it, that I'm a veteran. I just captured like this is who I am as a person, and so here's what I'm going to do. But more recently, I think I noticed maybe within the last 2 years that that's special to be a veteran, and it's actually not seeking glory or being prideful or anything like that, but it is like I have a certain unique set of skills that allows other people to relate, that actually might make them feel comfortable talking about and healing their trauma. So, that's a good thing.
Yes, that's exactly it. And but knowing I've had a few guests that they didn't recognize. In fact, even when people
Yeah.
would say, you're a veteran, they would deny it because in their mind, they might not have felt like they did enough
Yeah.
or they didn't go to combat or whatever. But the fact of the matter is you signed a contract and it's a two-way street, right? And so long as you weren't dishonorably discharged, right? I mean, you're still eligible for all of those benefits that
Mhm.
were talked about before you signed on the dotted line.
Yeah, and I think that there that happens a lot. It's not uncommon that, or even with the first responder community as well. It's very similar. Like we're like, okay, we did this, for our reasons or whatever, but we don't. When some people cringe when they say thank you for your service and things like that. And for me, I'm always like, well, thank you for your support, right? Because we need both the service and the support. So, but before I'd be like,
I
I don't
didn't do
really
anything.
appreciate your contributions, right? But that's not true. Like it takes so many people. But I think we look at, I mean, there's obviously people who have extensive experience, like a Navy SEAL or an Army Ranger, and special ops and things like that. They are just commendable, right? What they've done, but also for the other ones, we did something too, and it's okay to claim that status, but I think it is a mental shift that has to happen first.
Yeah. And I have to say too, I think the percentage is roughly only 18% out of the total, armed forces that have ever served in and, combat.
Hmm.
And the rest are like yourselves. You guys are the backbones because without you, they can't do what they need to do. Same thing with our community, the communications, those are in communications,
Yeah,
the paper pushers, all of that.
yeah,
It's what keeps them going and able to do what they
yeah,
do.
and I
So
think
you
it's
can't
hard.
diminish.
Yeah, and it's hard because the people that go to combat and they don't come home, but yet we didn't get selected. It's still hard because you might know somebody that did not come home, and it's like, dang, well, why them and not me? And so sometimes we'll find ourselves in that moral injury type of place where it should have been me, or I should have helped, or whatever happens in our brain. But that's just part of our experience.
Survivor's guilt is real,
Yeah,
and it can happen to somebody who has never seen combat but has a friend that has been,
absolutely.
overseas, deployed, whatever, even being a training accident, heaven forbid, and, stateside, and somebody, passes away from something like that. There's always that feeling of why why am I still here? You
Right.
know, um, so I understand and I recognize exactly
Hmm.
what you're saying. Um, so where are you today in everything with all of this?
Well, today, um, career wise, or you mean location?
Everything. What I guess we've talked about. where, your practice, we've talked
Mhm.
about obviously everything before that.
Yeah.
Where do you want to see your practice go? Let's say the next 5 years.
Yeah. So in the next 5 years, I just started EMDR groups at the Veteran Service Center. So that's been really cool because we're going into week 3 now out of a 6-week group. And in 2 weeks, I've had a couple people email me and say that they felt calmer, that they felt more in control of their responses. Just a game changer to have emotional regulation instead of going from 0 to 100, which we're
Yep.
known to do sometimes. So,
Yep.
and that's in 2 weeks. So I'm really excited to be able to report in 6 weeks what that cohort looked like. So I hope to continue to do more of those. I've already built out a schedule to do quarterly groups. And that will open up to veterans and first responders, their spouses, and military families as well. So that's going to be really cool. So I'm seeking funding for that though, because I want to have no barriers for them. So that means grants or sponsorships and partnering with nonprofits to make that happen. And also, I want to add retreats. I want to be able to take 10 veterans or spouses or military family members, 10 of us. I want to go to Virgin Islands. I want to have a couple workshops that are short, but so that you know how to relax, that you know how to chill, because it's very hard for us sometimes. So you're going to be doing something, but also we're going to be having fun too. And that's something, and community as well. So like that's where I see myself in 5 years, doing more groups, doing more retreats, and being able to teach people those skills that are needed, but we don't necessarily know like what to do.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted, who watches this, tonight or later on, and they wanted to contact you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
So I have made it super simple to contact me. They can go to bio.ariellenjordan.com.
How do you spell? What's the first one?
Bio, bio,
Hmm.
dot Arielle, Arielle, N for Nicole, Jordan, JORDAN.com. And it has everything. It's got my TikTok, it's got my Instagram, it has old podcasts that I've done, my dissertation work, you name it. If you want to know about
Wow.
me, that's where you can go. But I made it like that so that, because some people want to see like news clips that you've been in or podcasts or whatever. And so it's all there in one place.
So I've gone ahead and put it out there in the chats.
Thank you.
bio.ariellenjordan.com.
Yes.
So if anybody is interested in getting a hold of Dr. Jordan, feel free. You can reach out through there. I'm assuming there's a messaging. Let's go ahead and just put this. I'm going to bring this up so we can see it.
Yeah, they can message, they can book a service for my people that are not those people that want to go to weekly therapy. We can even do intensives to where you spend 3 hours with me and we do some trauma work. So it's intense, but it helps. Oh, thank you. That's cool that you could put it up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So above there, that has like the email and all the social media and stuff. So any of those rays, I will respond to you.
Excellent. So if anybody at this point has any questions, we've got just a couple minutes left for Dr. Jordan. Go ahead and put those out there in the chat, or anything else that you'd like to say. I do have a note here. So Ron Wayne says, it's an honor to meet you, Dr. Jordan. Thanks for serving and coming on the show. Very inspiring.
Thanks,
And
Ron.
yeah, we really enjoy the conversations that we have
Yeah.
and the support, right? It's always nice to know that you also have support as a veteran, and somebody who has served, and no matter what the circumstances, that
Right.
there are people who care.
Yeah.
So
And even, I mean, we're better together. And
yes.
I just talked about this last week in my group because so one of the things I like to do once we have a trauma processing, I try to get food donors. And so like last week we had Mission Barbecue bring us some food. And they're like, I really like that we get to eat after this. And I said, it's about community, right? Don't you feel like you're taken care of when Mission Barbecue or like Texas Roadhouse says, hey, here's some food for y'all. Like, you're doing great stuff. Yes, like it brings the community together to
Right.
see that support in those ways as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm not seeing any questions out there in the chat. So I do want to say again, thank you so much, Dr. Jordan, for your time coming on and having that conversation with me. It does mean a lot that you're willing to share your stories and help people understand and give them additional resources that they may need. So I sincerely appreciate that.
Yeah,
So
appreciate what you do as well, just having these conversations and putting it out there for us to not be alone as well. I think that's a wonderful connection that you created.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So for everybody else, thank you guys for joining tonight. We really appreciate that. And I am not going to be having a show next Sunday. My goal, and we'll see how this plays out, is to actually have, and hope everybody joins in because you must be present to win. We are going to be doing, hopefully this week, during the week, a giveaway, because yes, we have hit that 500 subscriber mark. So we do have several autographed veteran written books that will be given away. And we have some odd men swag as well. So we really want to make sure everybody's out there, can come on, but you have to be present to win. So I'll post the day before, as soon as I know then when we can do it. So I'm waiting for my better half to be here because he wants to make sure he could help. So again, Dr. Jordan, thank you so very much. And if you will, just stay put for me. And then we will, hang on. We do have a question. So Erica Walker, do you have books?
Yes, I do.
You do. Look at that.
I didn't even mention my books.
You didn't.
Erica,
let's hear about those books. What do you have?
So I've written a couple books. One of them is called Holding Space, and it talks about kind of what to do after surviving a traumatic loss. So it's more like a little bit of my story, but also what to do when or if it happens to you. And then United We Serve, United We Heal. That's my book. It's a guide to heal from racial trauma. And that book actually made it to #1 on Amazon. So that,
congratulations.
So that was a really cool moment to make it there. Also, there's another book that I was featured in called Base Go Boom. And it's an anthropology. So it has 10 different veteran stories about resilience.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was a really cool project that I got to be a part of. And Dr. X is the one that wrote that book, and Xavier Bruce is his name. He has done a couple volumes since then. So he's helped with making other veterans authors by contributing to their story to the book.
I love that.
Yeah, so thanks, Erica. That was a good question.
Yes, right on time. Thank you, Erica. And thank you all for being here as well. And please, at the end of the show, make sure you go out, you hit the notification bell and subscribe. We need to get our veterans stories out there far and wide, and to help other veterans know they are not alone in anything that they may be going through. And a lot of the resources that are told here may be able to help some veterans. So we really appreciate that. And again, we appreciate you, Dr. Jordan. So thank you, everybody. And as a reminder, again, next Sunday, we will not be here. But we will be hopefully during the week. So if you want to stay put for me, Dr. Jordan, we'll be right back. You guys have a great rest of your evening and a wonderful week.